So I talked a little bit about this book yesterday for the Sesshin Dharma talk. So for those of you who are here, I will try to not be super redundant. The book is called Thinking's Bad Rap by Seiso Paul Cooper, who is a Dharma teacher in the Katagiri lineage. He just published this book in the last few months. And his main thrust of the book is kind of to dispel this uh, dispel the conception that the point of meditation is to limit your thoughts or stop your thoughts. And good meditation means my mind is really blank and clear. And if my mind is really busy, well, then that's bad meditation. I had a bad session. Um, his aim is to kind of switch that up. And using Dogen Zenji as a primary resource or reference, really show that Zazen is about our relationship to thinking and not thinking generally. And it's all kind of revolving around this really famous koan. I'll just read really quickly. Once, when the great master Yakusan was sitting, a monk asked him, "What are you thinking of, sitting there so fixedly?" Yakusan answered, "I'm thinking of not thinking." The monk asked, "How do you think of not thinking?" Yakusan answered, "Non-thinking. Non-thinking." So yeah, the kind of basic structure of this book talks about, and again, these are all just words. We're trying to do our best to convey the unconveyable, right? And so he's really trying to present this non-thinking as a non-dualistic experience that includes both thinking and not thinking. Kind of presenting the oneness or the unison or the harmony of thinking and not thinking. So yeah, I just think this was really appropriate for our session since we spend so much time in Zazen. And I, like many, fell victim to this notion that if I'm in sesshin, I should be trying as hard as I can, spend as much time and effort as I can, trying to be blank. And the more time that I'm sitting there blank, the more merit I will accrue, and the cooler I'll be, and the wiser I'll sound, and all of that. And it's just not true. It's just simply not how it works. And Dogen, the father of Japanese Soto Zen, the founder of Japanese Soto Zen, wholeheartedly agrees. So, I'm going to talk about this book, I think, for a little while for my next few talks. And like I said to our session participants yesterday, I implore you to not try to understand this. Do not try to put together how this makes sense, because it doesn't. So it really is just allowing the words to kind of go through our ear holes and shake up whatever it shakes up inside us, inspire us in whatever way it does, or not, and then just let it go. All of this thinking, not thinking, non-thinking. As kind of a thesis statement, he says, in short, despite being a function of duality, thinking and not thinking operate simultaneously, non-dualistically, as an expression of realization. So when you're sitting there clear-headed, total realization. when you're sitting there thinking about this and that and all the things, total realization. And it's the mind that says, oh, I shouldn't be thinking about it. I should be more clear. Oh, I've sat for 2 years. How come I can't be clear now? That's where the problem lies. But if my mind's busy, just be busy. If my mind is clear, just be clear. And I know I said this yesterday, so I'm sorry for repeating, but I just think there's something there. For those of us who have studied the precepts, um, if we take the second precept of not stealing, we study that there's the practice of not stealing, trying to not take what's not ours. But then there's also this element of, well, sometimes the wisest, most compassionate thing is to steal in various circumstances. We hold on, we flow what's most appropriate in the moment. And then the third aspect of the koan is non-stealing. From the perspective of oneness, there is no your thing and my thing and I steal your thing. That's dualistic by nature, to even think that stealing is possible. And from that non-stealing perspective, stealing and not stealing operate simultaneously. So I'm just trying to tie it in with how he's talking about thinking. And I don't know, I feel like there's something to, this might be the ultimate precept. And it's not even named in the things we study. Non-thinking. The ultimate precept. Before the pure precepts, before the 3 treasures, before the 10 bodhisattva precepts, non-thinking, where thinking and not thinking operate simultaneously. I don't know. Makes no sense to me. Let's see. Maybe I'll skip forward here. Dogen consistently emphasizes action and relationships in the present moment over striving for fixed, culminating psychological states such as satori or nirvana. So that's kind of just basic Soto practice, that being together, being in relationship, acting in the world, whether your world is a monastery or a tiny village or a huge city. It's our actions and our relationships where our practice really manifests. And so coming to meditation just to experience some kind of state or have some kind of experience, that's cool. That's cool. And if you do come, you will have these experiences. I think a lot of us have these experiences even without coming to the Zendo. Listening to a 4-year-old talk can sometimes be a super enlightening experience. But really, over these deep meditative experiences, more important for our practice is action and relationship. At least that's what Dogen is saying here. This is kind of a random, kind of non sequitur sentence, but I really like it. Because, as we read all of this Zen stuff, as we work through koans, as we read Dogen, and as we go through life, a lot of it doesn't make sense to our conditioned, logical brain. So yeah, Dogen says, If a human being, even for a single moment, manifests the Buddha's posture, sits up straight in samadhi, the entire world assumes the Buddha's posture, and the whole of space becomes the state of realization. So if one person just sits on his afu, the whole of space becomes the state of realization. That's Dogen. And then the author here says, this sentence, taken from Bendoa, is not illogical, but rather reflects a new kind of logic. Isn't that cool? I don't know, something about that, because we're so accustomed to saying and hearing, well, it's not about logic, it's, break your discursive mind, it's visceral, it's experiential, which is true, but I also like this new language of it's actually just a new logic. I don't know how to explain that or express that in any kind of satisfying way, but oneness, emptiness, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. Are these illogical or just a new kind of logic that we can acquaint ourselves with more and more? Food for thought, or not thought, or non-thought. Dogen expresses this position in the notion that enlightenment is beginningless, practice is endless. Someone the other day was talking about an infinite scale, and if we do open up to the new logic of an infinite scale, infinite practice, infinite karma, whatever it may be, then to talk about a beginning point or an ending point is kind of moot, right? So the notion that enlightenment is beginningless, practice is endless, contingent upon the interaction between manifesting causes as they interact with the sincerity of committed Zen practice, within the context of the goalless, aimless, and choiceless awareness that characterizes shikantaza, or just sitting. So, this is referring to shikantaza, which is kind of like a core practice in Soto Zen. It's different from counting your breaths. It's different from working on a koan. It's different from working with a mantra. This shikantaza, pure, just sitting. No mechanism, no tool, no object of concentration. Just pure receptivity, becoming this moment, is goalless. Can any of us really say that we walk in here with no goal? Put our phones away, put our job away, put our relationships away for a whole weekend, for a whole week, with no goal? Aimless. And my favorite word, choiceless. Choiceless. It's so hard to do. It's easy to say, so hard to do, to just sit with no goal, no tool, and no choice. Kind of like a spider web, right? The spider just kind of hopes a fly will fly into it, but it gets leaves, it gets dust, it gets my face sometimes. But yeah, I'm just thinking of that now. Shikantaza is just being a spider web, just receiving everything, external and internal. That's the point. All of our thoughts too. The Shikantaza web catches every thought, every obsession, every feeling, every desire, right? Basic Buddhism. To end suffering, end desires. How do we end desires? Be with your desires, with no goal and no choice. Catch them in your web. Let's see, moving on here. Okay, this is nice. In popular culture, there is a definite bias and an emphasis on the calm surface of meditation, and an often wholesale disregard for the truth of our own thinking, perceptual processes, and their products. Does that resonate? Do y'all does that, right? There's, corporate commercials now that like center this image of meditation being a calm, peaceful place. However, during practice, as tension builds up, as it often does, the Zen practitioner simply continues to sit, guided by no gaining mind. The practitioner permits whatever emerges into awareness without judgment, attachment, or aversion. And over time, these intense states will soften and have less impact. In this manner, difficult states become workable, and the practitioner forms a different relationship to internal processes. Yeah, I don't know that I can say much on top of that other than as you build your meditation practice, you will get less calm and peaceful, and all of your stuff will get stirred up. Someone recently said to me, it feels like intensive meditation is basically getting in touch with yourself. And that's a really simple thing to say, really kind of maybe obvious, but I kind of never thought about it in those terms. We're getting in touch with ourselves. Dogen was famous for saying to study the Buddha way is to study the self. I kind of like to get in touch with the Buddha way is to get in touch with the self. And it's just, try it out. Do sesshin. You'll see. I mean, look, I'll speak for myself that there is all this stuff from my 2 days ago, from my childhood, inherited traumas and problems that's sitting in there, in our cells, in our bellies, in our hearts, in our spirits. And day to day, I get cheeseburgers and I watch TV and I have friends and I go out and I go traveling, all these ways that I can avoid looking at it. And then all it takes is just sitting on this cushion for a little bit of time, setting everything else aside, and all that stuff comes up. Sometimes even without a trigger, without anything to bring it up. And now all of a sudden, this ancient anger, sadness, resentment is full front and center, totally caught in my web. And that is good. That is good. I remember I always tell this story, but a long time ago, I did sesshin, and I was at the end of sesshin, and I was just so full of anxiety and anger. And I was talking to Echo, and I said, I don't get it. I just sat, I spent all this time in silence. Why am I so riled up? And he said, yeah, that stuff within you is like a flower coming through the concrete. And whether it's alcohol and TV or whether it's, calming meditation, we can try to shove that stuff down. But if we leave a little space, which hopefully our Zazen does, it will come out. And as he's saying here, it's the practice itself of being still with all that chaos, with all that thought, with all that passion and desire and anger and all the stuff. If we can be still with all of that, then our relationship to it shifts over time. Maybe it shifts in 30 minutes, maybe it shifts in 30 years. I don't know what dictates that. But this same practice of being a spider web has lasted for thousands of years for a reason, I assume. So it really is just the act of being still with our chaos that, what does he say, softens our relationship to it. Yeah, this is kind of the same point. No matter where the thoughts go, no matter what emerges, as sitting in stillness continues, the body is still and contains whatever else one may be thinking. In this way, sitting engenders a pure receptiveness and readiness, and a lived immediacy to the present experienced moment. And then here he says about, calming, quiet the mind practices. He says, while well-intentioned, such practices can become a misguided form of resistance to one's lived truth. So how am I using, it's kind of just, your basic spiritual bypassing. How am I using spiritual practice to resist this lived truth? Be it calm or be it full of thought. I guess I'll just end with this basic summation quote from Dogen. There is learning the truth through casting aside your thoughts. There is learning the truth through taking them up. In such instances, the truth is learned through thinking, and the truth is learned through not thinking. And so, yeah, when we can truly, purely receive thinking and not thinking as a spider web, that is embodying non-thinking.